Welcome, everybody. As I take a sip of water before we get started, I really appreciate you joining us today for a webinar that Cindy and I are doing regarding overcoming some common and not so common objections. We're going to go through some examples, and as I progress through the screens, I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention. Recently, I attended an annual meeting, and we had a great speaker there who was Ryan Leak, L-E-A-K, if you haven't heard of Ryan. But he came out with a book called Unoffendable, and No Offense, None Taken. And it's a short little book. It's about 60 pages. And if we think about objections, and as we deal with objections, we need to look at ourselves first in determining, are we offended by everything anytime someone, puts an objection toward us, or how offended are we? I think if we can work on these objections, and we're going to go through a bunch of them, but stop and pause a minute. Whenever someone puts forth an objection, it's not a bad thing. It can be an opportunity, but we also have to take stock of our own initial reactions in, are we responding from an aspect of being offended, or are we open to that objection and willing to solve together? So if you haven't read that book, it's, like I said, it's a short 1-hour read. It's called Unoffendable, and Ryan Leak does a lot of YouTube videos too. You've seen him on Oprah and a few other things. Good motivational speaker, funny, very funny. But a lot of key points in this with respect to taking stock of our own reactions when someone puts forth any type of objection. So I'm going to continue here. The next slide is just a little bit about me. If you haven't heard me before through Cindy's training series, I am a branch manager with Fairfway Independent Mortgage here based out of Fairfax, Virginia. Been in the business, this will be my 34th year, and originating and managing teams of loan officers in the Washington metro area. So I'm going to jump right in and talk a little bit about why is objection handling so important. You have to be practiced, and you have to be willing to expect objections to arise, okay? And they're going to occur whenever a prospect presents a concern about your product or service. Handling that objection is really the process of responding appropriately to alleviate any concerns your prospect has, and allows us to move that transaction forward. There's a lot of background noise on the line. Dave, I don't know if you can mute it. Okay, so tips for handling objections successfully. First of all, we want to avoid reacting impulsively to objections. Okay, we want to take a minute. We don't want to just react as soon as someone presents something and rush to solve it without actually listening carefully to them and really recognizing the root of the objection. We definitely want to validate their concern, let them know we've listened and we understand, and then we want to ask more questions. We want to be sure before we present a solution that we ask the appropriate questions to be sure we're solving appropriately. And then we do want to respond in a thoughtful way, not with anger, not with resentment, not with outrage that they've dared to object to something that you've presented, but just with a measured, thoughtful response. So we're going to go through each of these objections, and I'm going to present some ways to deal with the objections. They're not certainly all inclusive. There are so many various ways you can deal with objections. So I'm just going to present some things that may work for you. And you can go from there and see if you can modify those so that they sound comfortable coming from you, or just give some thought to them, okay? Dave, can you hear me okay? Because it's a lot of feedback I'm getting. Okay, I'm going to press on. So the first one, often we get this all the time, or it's just a throw out objection, it's too expensive. And when someone says it's too expensive, it could be, let's say you're on the listing side of the transaction. Maybe they're talking about the amount of the commission they have to pay. What I would do is I would say, ask them to clarify exactly what is too expensive. Is it the actual number? Do you feel that that's too much for the service that I'm providing? Get more information as to why they think it's too expensive. Make them explain it, and statistics are on your side here. We know that if they work with a real estate agent on selling that property, that usually they can achieve a higher net proceed by having an experienced realtor in their corner. So maybe statistics will help in that scenario in explaining why the expense is worth it. From the buyer side of the transaction, you're showing them a home that the lender has validated that they can afford. But let's say the buyer says, well, this is too expensive, but they've given you a list of everything that they need in the home, and you know that in order to get them what they've asked for in the place they've asked for it, they might have to go to that price point. So sometimes you can be in a tough spot in that scenario because everything they said they wanted is in this house, and yet they still say it's too expensive. You might choose to be candid with them and tell them, you can negotiate, you can, we can make an offer to the seller, we can see what they say. You can also mention, perhaps, have you talked to a tax advisor regarding the tax benefits of homeownership? Maybe with the added tax benefits compared to what you're paying right now, with the tax benefit, it might be close to what you're paying right now, even though it seems like more. The net impact could be close to what you're paying right now, and maybe that's not as scary if they had talked to a tax professional regarding the benefits of the ownership, and they're getting an appreciating asset, and put that into our calculation. If you've gone down that route and they're really just objecting to, what they have to spend in order to get what they want, maybe the next questions are, let's adjust the criteria a little. Maybe adjust the criteria. We can show you less expensive homes that might work for now, but might not be the end-all home for you and your family down the line. So candid conversation. It's expensive to me is always a catch-all kind of objection. It really means there's more opportunity for questioning and going deep with that customer to find out what exactly is it. Are they not ready to move forward? Is it really too expensive? There could be more to the story there. And like I said, we're trying to find out exactly what they perceive they are paying too much for, and on what is that based? What's the criteria that they feel that way? Or is it just a knee-jerk reaction to the overall expensive process, and are they scared? Maybe they're first-time buyers, or maybe they're move-up buyers, and this is just overwhelming at this point. So again, we just want to get a little bit more specific when they're talking about expensive, because it can mean a lot of things. The next objection, I actually got this objection early in my career. I only work with men, or I only work with women. So I might have mentioned this on other calls that I had done. There was a realtor that I was working with for quite a while, and we were trying to do business together. And then after about 3 to 4 months, 5 months, I really sat down with him and I said, we're doing a lot of these things together. We're reaching out there. And he said, Kelly, you're great to work with, but a lot of my clientele only work with men. They don't work with women. This was a long time ago. Okay. And at that point, it could be anything, right? You're not going to, I'm not going to overcome that easily to say, well, can I address something? Is it just on that basis, which kind of is a bit offensive when you hear it. But in reality, he had a cultural a disposition of his clients that only worked with male counterparts. And I actually just looked at him at that point and said, thank you for letting me know, because then that helps me evaluate where I spend my time. Okay? You know, don't be offended by that. If that's a feature of his business and his clientele, that's something that, as good as he was trying to be with me to get me business, was not really resulting in effort, you know, any business for me given the effort I was putting in. So I adjusted my effort. And, you know, at least you saved me time by telling me that instead of me trying to think I was doing something wrong. So as on the outside, that looks offensive, but there could be more to it with respect to the clientele that they were dealing with, and that was just a fact, and that was something I had to just, you know, learn to live with. The next one, we're already working with someone else, and I'll skip down where it says I'm happy with, quote unquote, competitor. Again, that might be true. That could be a brush off. We don't know exactly if they're actually working with someone else. But it's a key for asking some questions. And, you know, in this regard, I would say, well, thank you for telling me. You know, I would really have liked an opportunity to work with you. I think we would have been a good fit together. But I would really like to know what you like about the person you're working with or the competitor. You know, is there something that is just so exceptional about their customer service or the way that they're working with you that you really appreciate? I like the feedback. You know, I'm a big girl. I can take the feedback. You never know where you're missing because people are not candid up front. I think when you come to them with an earnest question and say, I really would have liked to work with you very much. It's not just about the money. I think we would have worked very well together. But beyond that, if there was something I wasn't doing that somebody else is doing, I would love to learn from that. And if you could just take a couple of minutes and tell me what that was, I would so appreciate it because I'm always looking to grow and improve. And you never know where that's going to lead. There's a lot of people that don't want to discuss it further. You've got nothing to lose by asking. You have others that are so taken aback by you asking the question and that you're not offended that they will share those experiences with you. And who knows, there could be something that you need to improve on or just tweak a little. It could be something so small, but someone is unwilling to share that with you and you really could have used it. So don't be afraid to ask that question. And if they say, well, you know, I really like the way that they communicate, or you can ask, what does their communication with you look like? You know, how often are they communicating? Is that something? You know, you can ask some questions too and see if they're willing to engage on that. So another one in the middle there, I can get a cheaper price elsewhere. That's true with anything, right? If someone's going to be a shopper and it's all about just the price of your service, that to me is an opportunity for you to bring your value. Know your statistics. Show them what you do and why you're worth it. You are worth it, and you have to believe you're worth it. There's more about price than just the number. We get this a lot of times, obviously, we're in the lending business. We get it for rate shoppers, and they will say, I can get a cheaper rate elsewhere. Well, they might be able to give a cheaper rate, but the costs that they're charging aren't apples to apples. And maybe there's hidden fees in there that they don't know about. On the real estate side of the transaction, be upfront, right? If you're the listing agent and this is an objection on the side for what the seller is paying on the cost, and they're looking at, you know, reduced listing opportunity costs so they can sell their home, you've got to show your value and the statistics of the firm that you work at and your personal statistics. Reviews really help here. This is a big transaction. And I go back to the point that an experienced agent will always bring more value in getting higher contracts and better nets for the seller. And I think you just talk about those statistics of you, your firm. If you're new in the business, talk to your broker. Talk to the statistics of the firm. You can borrow those statistics. It's a company you are affiliated with. You know, look at those strategies for bringing the best value to the customer. And definitely reviews help. The next one where it says, I've never heard of your company. Again, sometimes you have new real estate companies and lenders breaking into the area. Whichever company you work for, you know, it might not be well known in the area. Again, statistics help. There are a lot of national companies that are branching out into different areas, and they might be better known elsewhere and are new to this location. Statistics will always tell the story. Be prepared. Be sure you have something to leave them with, or offer them, you know, offer them some reviews, offer them anything online that you can share about the company, testimonials. You want to tell them why you joined this company. You know, if they're new to the area, why is it so important for you to be on the ground floor, or to have, maybe you made a move to another real estate firm from one. Why did you make the move? What does it bring them that's special? And you want to tell them how unique the company is and how unique you are and why it's a great fit for you. Honestly, we all know that this is a people business, right? They're not really working with the company name. They're going to follow you and what you're bringing to the table. But in the event you get that objection, you want to be ready as to why it's you are the special added new addition to that company. I read some poor reviews about you or your company online, right? Always a challenge, because anybody can write anything about anyone, whether it's true or not, okay? In this regard, be authentic. Don't be defensive. Maybe there was a poor transaction or perceived as poor transaction, or maybe it was just problematic and someone, you know, wrote a poor review, that the process was just difficult, it was problematic. That doesn't mean you're horrible. That means that maybe it was a difficult transaction and that online isn't really sharing the best story for that. So be authentic. If it was a problematic transaction with a lot of moving pieces, if someone asks about that, and just say, glad you brought it up. No transaction is 100% perfect, although that's what I strive for. That was one. Here are 50 other reviews that say it's not, and I can explain that. Or you're welcome to call these people that I've worked with in the past, you know, to talk about their experiences with me over and above this. Be sure you have people that are your advocates that are willing, you know, to talk to people who want to work with you. Maybe they'll share their phone number or email address that a prospective client can reach out to. But again, I think you have to acknowledge your actions if it's a poor review, if the steps you took to mitigate any problems and will take, and how upfront you are, how you communicate, how you want to address any issues upfront. You are their advocate, and you're always there to listen to them if they should have any concerns. Again, it's you know, you can work with your online providers and see if you can mitigate any poor review online, but undoubtedly, especially if you're working in the millennial group, a lot of times and my marketing director is going to be doing a marketing to millennial presentation next month with Cindy Bishop Worldwide here in Fairfax. She'll tell you straight up, and she is a millennial, she'll say straight up in that group, anybody who posts fives, let's say it's 5 stars out of 5 stars and only fives, a lot of the millennial group will say, well, something's wrong, because no one can get all fives every time. You know, 4.5 to 5, there should be something in there that tells me they're authentic. You know, that something, they're willing to post reviews in that category. That shows me they're authentic and are more apt to work with that. So just kind of keep that in mind. Listening, where it says, I don't think you're listening to me, okay? That's troublesome, right? Because you might be listening perfectly well, and you're forced to apologize instead of argue. Okay? Apologize. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it for me? I want to be sure that I understand perfectly. Acknowledge what you did here and ask for validation. Do I have that right? I thought I heard you say X. Is that correct? Ask those questions. Be sure you get that buy-in. We're always looking for them to say yes, yes, yes. And please tell me more and let them talk. Don't interrupt them. When they're finished speaking, repeat it back to them, validate it. Is that correct? Okay, so don't proceed with the conversation unless you have buy-in and acknowledgement that you have it correct, and then can move on to the next topic. Dave, I want to stop here. I don't know if you can open it up and see if anybody's got any questions.
Yeah, if you guys could, hopefully everybody sees the chat box, and if you have questions so far, this is a good time to go ahead and jump in and or even if there's other objections that you have found that we may want to address. So anyway, yeah, again, hopefully everybody sees the chat box and can take the opportunity to weigh in on this. So far, so good.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to move to the next screen, and we'll cover a few more. So I'm busy right now. Everybody gets this one, right? You get the hang up, maybe it's a cold call, maybe they genuinely are busy, but they do want to talk to you. Again, what can you say? I can appreciate that you're busy. I'm available after hours. Is there a better time later today that we can chat? What would be convenient? What I have to share might be of great interest to you. You need to tell them why it's important. They don't brush you off. Okay? They could be busy right now. You have to have something of value that you're bringing to the table to try to schedule an appointment to talk. Maybe you time block, and I'm a huge proponent of time blocking. I'm available between 2 and 4 today, or if you need an evening time, between 6 and 7:30. Does any time between those hours work for you? I don't think you should miss what I have to tell you about your situation and how much I think that this could help you or be of interest to you. Go for that kind of appointment scheduling, and be persistent. Sometimes it's 5 or 6 or 7 phone calls before someone finally agrees to chat or to meet or whatever it may be. But it could be a brush off, but it could be legitimately that they are busy, and you want to be respectful of that. I'm not interested. Again, it could truly be they're not interested, but maybe they aren't interested, but you might want to take it a step further. Is it a time in the next 6 months that you might be interested? How about the next 12 months or 2 years? Do you think you'll be buying a new home? Do you think you'll be selling a new home? Are you looking at investment property at any time within that window? If not you, are any of your friends or neighbors or family possibly interested? It is a great time. Rates are historically low. It is a great time to invest in real estate, and we don't want to miss an opportunity that could work for your wealth planning in the future. Can I add you to my free newsletter list for market updates? Always ask them for that connection. Is it okay that I send you my home buyers newsletter or, my market newsletter updates? I'm the real estate expert in this neighborhood. There's great information on investing in real estate, second homes, et cetera, et cetera. Ask the question, can I add you to my mailing list so we can stay in touch? Again, you're working in a historically low rate environment. Every time these interest rates drop 0.25%, you are pulling thousands of people into the home buying market. We don't have enough houses on the market to meet the demand coming in for buyers. We just don't have them. So, you know, it's going to be a crazy time to get this environment more balanced. I mean, the sellers hold all the cards right now, and it's a war zone for the buyers. So we want to keep in touch with anybody that we're talking to, whether it's now or in the future. You know, not interested might just mean not now. And then just send me some information again. You know, happy to do that. What specifically would you like to see? Ask the question. Are you buying? Are you selling? Are you renovating? Are you downsizing? You know, are you retiring? Whatever the situation might be, what's the topics that you would like to see so I can gear my communication to your greatest interest? How often would you like to receive it? Do you want something monthly, bi-weekly, you know, 3 times a year, 4 times a year? What are your preferences? By the way, I also am on Facebook, and I post great articles on there or information on there that might be very interesting to you and your specific needs. Can I add you as a friend on Facebook? And you can see some of the information that I put on there. And maybe it's your business page. Maybe it's your personal page. You know, can I add you? I have a lot of great resources and preferred vendors on there. So if you ever need anything for your current house, I have some great people that I can refer to you. Always look for extending that circle or your sphere of influence and trust as the go-to person for whatever they might need. That's just going to lend you more referrals as time goes by. Call me back next quarter. That happens a lot. I'm not interested right now. Call me in a few months. This could be a brush off, but it could be a specific ask. And you need to take the high road, right? Let's assume it's a specific ask. Okay, when would be a good time to touch base next quarter? Is there something happening next quarter that's going to impact your housing decisions that I need to know about? Maybe there's a job change. Maybe they're moving in or out of the area. Maybe it's a relocation. Maybe, again, it's a downsize. Maybe it's a second home. Maybe they're getting a raise and they want to move up. You just don't know. There's a lot of questions you can ask here. You want to be asking those questions so you can prepare accordingly to the communication they want to see. How did you get my information? If it's a cold call, be honest. Just say, you know, I keep in touch with the county and, you know, I farm this specific area. I got a list of people in the area that I'm an expert in, and I'm reaching out to introduce myself. Maybe that's a cold call, right? Be honest. Answer the question. Maybe you live in the neighborhood for the cold call, and you can just say, I'm calling all of my neighbors because I have something to tell them about the real estate market. Maybe you purchased a mailing list. Maybe you went to public records. Maybe someone did refer you to them, and you have an actual referral. Use the name and make it as warm as you can, and thank the referral partner who provided that information. We all want a warm referral, but we don't always get what we want, right? A lot of times we're making cold calls. We're reaching out on the basis of some information we have, whether it's geographically, whether it's property type, location, interest rate, whatever the public record might be. Be honest with that. You know, we have reverse mortgage specialists that work with mailing lists of homeowners that are age 62 or higher. That's very specific to that product. Be honest about it. You know, if you're a senior specialist in real estate, talk about that if that's what your target is. There's a lot of things you can do. If you like to do homes and renovate them, you know, you work with builders or whatever who do renovations, you can talk about that expertise. But again, how you got the information, you need to be honest with that. You know, you'll get a lot more credibility and a little further in the conversation with an honest answer there. I hate you. This wasn't meant to be funny, but there are some cases where I grew up in a very sarcastic area in New Jersey, right? And people would laugh and say, oh, I hate you. You know, if someone's writing that in a text, that's scary, okay? But if someone's with you over the phone and you're hearing that, or you're meeting with them face to face, you need to determine the root of that kind of comment. Are they genuinely angry at you? Then of course you want to run for the hills. But if it's more about you've given them so much information that they're confused and they're just jokingly saying, I hate you because you're making me think. Okay, you're making me think. You're making me reconsider things that I already thought that I knew. And that's not a bad thing. You know, I think you have to, when someone says, I hate you, you have to obviously get to the bottom of it. But we've had people say that, like, oh, I hate that you're telling me this. I hate that, you know this much and you're pointing me in all these directions because now I'm a little more confused or I have more to think about when I thought it was already resolved. That's not a bad thing. You're the expert. It's your job. We're here as lenders to consult and make them think. You know, it's not just about this moment. It's about 5 years from now. What are your goals with this property? What are your goals with your finances? Let's talk about that because it's not just about this moment. You know, so getting them to think, you know, those 3 words, if they come across in a text, you know, what do you hate about me, right? What is it that you exactly hate? You know, and only you're going to judge that relationship with them and how serious that is and respond accordingly. Before we talk further, I need to know your political affiliation, religious affiliation, etc. This is an interesting one because it does come up, believe it or not. And sometimes it's a genuine curiosity. Sometimes it's a challenge question. They just want to see how you're going to react to something that's kind of a little out there. Sometimes like-minded people want to work with like-minded people, and it's a genuine question. Doesn't mean it's a fair question, but a lot of times it's just to gauge how you're going to react to someone trying to derail you. You're sitting in the middle of a presentation and someone throws that question out to you. You might be defensive immediately hearing that. You know, what does that got to do with anything, right? You know, that might be your immediate reaction. But maybe you want to say, well, why would you ask that question? How is that pertinent to what we're doing? Or maybe you just answer the question, right? And they go, okay. Let's move on. You don't really know why someone would ask that question, but don't put it past someone to try to derail you in a presentation, maybe for a listing or working with a buyer, just to try to see how you're going to react. And only you know how you would answer that question. You know, the point I'm making with is don't be offended initially. I think most of us would hear that and immediately like get our shoulders up or all of a sudden leaning forward and going, what? You know, how is that pertinent to what we're doing? But, you know, identify where it's coming from, why it's important, and ask some questions, you know, and then you can decide if you're a good fit to work with the customer or not, you know, depending upon some of the answers that you engage in. The next one is, you don't understand my situation, okay? Again, this could be just someone not willing to listen sometimes. You might have a very clear understanding of the situation, but maybe there's just an emotional response to something here where they're saying, you don't understand my situation. All you can do is I tell, you know, my teams, take a breath. You know, just take a breath before you answer. And maybe just ask for some explanations so you have enough information to solve for any kind of concerns that they have. They might not be forthcoming with everything. There could be a concern for privacy. You know, it's hard in real estate and in lending for someone to take you into confidence in something that might be problematic or troublesome in their history with either buying a home, selling a home, getting a mortgage, etc. It could just be very personal. And you might not be able to ever truly understand their situation. So you might just have to say, you know what, understand that anything we discuss is purely confidential. Share with me what you're willing to share. If I have enough information to move forward with what we discuss, I will certainly tell you the options available to you with what you've provided me. If I need more information, I'm going to ask for it. And if I can't get that information, then unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to proceed further because it's pertinent to what I can do for you. So, only you need to know what kind of information you have to have in order to move forward. Sometimes if it's a financial scenario, let them talk to the lender. Just say, share it with the lender. They'll know better. It's confidential. They're not going to share it with me as the realtor, but they'll be better able to provide you some guidance on what you need to do next to get you in the best buying position possible. You definitely want to impress upon them your desire to serve, right? You're trying to provide customer service. You can best serve them by knowing all the facts pertinent to any buy-sell situation. It's all about, providing the best service, but they have to be willing to share, at least enough that you can gauge if you're able to provide them that service. So again, why is handling the objection so important? Nothing is more dangerous than ignoring a sales objection during the transaction at any point, right? Because it can escalate as the transaction continues when it could have been easily solved early on in the process. You want to proactively identify any objections by asking questions such as, do you have any further concerns around this issue? Are there any additional obstacles that would prevent you from proceeding? Are you confident that this new home satisfactorily meets your needs? You seem a bit worried about something. What are your thoughts? Again, give your prospect a chance to talk, and then be sure you repeat a summary back to them. You have to be sure you've gotten engagement and that you all are on the same pages before you can proceed appropriately. And because you listened to them, you avoided that knee-jerk reaction to the objection, right? You were unoffendable. You paused, and you were thoughtful in the way you responded. Your prospects are often more inclined to hear you out since you let them express themselves fully and patiently without interruption. And you continue to ask questions to be sure you understand any and all concerns as soon as possible. Do your weekly check-ins. Here's where we are in the process. Here's where we are today. Is there anything else I can do for you? Anything else I haven't addressed for you that you're concerned about? Validate any consensus that you've reached and be sure you've gained agreement before moving on to the next steps. Always check in. Get as many yeses as you can. They're going to keep coming back to you. The more they say yes, the more you're the person they're going to call each and every time. And you will earn their trust each time you handle their concern effectively. And that was all I had for today. Did we have any questions before we end the webinar?
Anybody? Yeah, if you guys have any questions, or if there's like I mentioned earlier, if there's objections that you think might fit into some of these other ones that we talked about, or new ones that you've heard, we would appreciate your input.
Absolutely. I mean, we're always looking to help them. Believe me, these are just, after years of sales experience, things that we run into. But I know there's a lot more out there that you might have gotten. They might have been off the wall. They might have been standard or common or not so common. But I think that our point was here, just take a moment, be thoughtful, try not to do a knee-jerk reaction to it. You might not think it's important, but they think it's important, and we have to treat each one as it is important regardless. And I hope you got something out of today's webinar.
Hold on one sec here. We do have Tamara said, could you go back over how you respond when someone says that they are already working with someone? Because I'm sure that's when they hear a lot. So
yeah. And we get that. We're already working with someone, and I would say that's great. I'm glad that you found someone that you really trust. This is a big transaction for you. I'm curious because I'm sad that we're not going to be able to work together, but I want to respect your relationship with somebody else. Can you tell me what you like about how they work with you? You know, can you tell me a little bit about their method of communication? What is it about them that really endears them to you as a successful partner in your transactions? I'm always looking to better myself and to learn if there's something I need to do. So I would be really curious to know what's important to you and the way that relationship has progressed. Let them brag about that relationship. They might just hang up the phone, but if you get them talking because you're asking for some help, you know, is what you're doing. Most people want to talk to you when they feel that they're important, right? You've just made them feel important. It's important to me to know what's important to you about that relationship because I'm always looking to improve myself. Would you mind sharing what you like so much about your realtor? And that's all I would do.
Good. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, we run into that as lenders. We know that realtors give 2 or 3 lenders. You know, who's number 1 on the list versus number 3 on the list doesn't mean that they're not all great, right? Sometimes realtors give 3 names and they know that the first one they give is a better fit, perhaps personality-wise, but all the lenders are equally as good. You know, we're not really trying to step on a relationship by asking you to give our names. What we're trying to do is better the experience for you and that particular purchaser, because maybe from a personality standpoint, we're a better fit in working together than some others on the list.
Yeah, well put.
Mm-hmm. All right, then. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Yep, and I think this is going to go out on the website, right, Dave?
Yep, you bet. Absolutely. So you bet. It'll be recorded and posted up there probably in the next few days.
All right. You all have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for being here this afternoon. You bet. All right, you guys.